Always a big highlight of the live set for many, many years. What Do You Want From Me from Don't Say No. That's the 30th anniversary re-release edition, which is available now. Completely remastered, some new liner notes, a couple bonus tracks on there as well from, of course, Billy Squier, who has been hanging out with me for the most part of the first half of tonight's edition of EddieTrunk Live. And one of the things I love most about doing satellite radio is the opportunity to really get into stuff, no commercials, really break down some stuff and have these sort of conversations, which is, my favorite thing to do. So thank you for, being so generous with your time and stories, and it's a lot of fun for me. I appreciate it. I
have a suggestion, because I know you're going to try to cram the rest of my career into 3 minutes.
You want to come back next week and do the next three
records? Well, I don't know about next week, because I won't be here. No, but I think, for people who are interested, which you would know better than I, if you're gonna do it, you should do it right. So, it probably would take another session or two to get through this.
Yeah,
we won't do too much justice to anything.
No,
but I think anything else you want to discuss about Don't Say No, we should do that, and then we'll make another date. We'll come back.
Well, it really, Don't Say No, I think it speaks for itself in terms of what it did for your career. I think what's interesting about Don't Say No is how it set the stage for your career, what happened beyond that, which, again, we can't get into as much detail, but you became a headliner. You became an arena headliner off of the success of Don't Say No, then Emotions. I remember seeing shows where I believe Def Leppard opened for you.
I like to say that we broke Def Leppard in America, which, obviously they had a little to do with it. Yeah. But no, I was the one who brought them over. I brought them over, and when they had done Pyromania, and I'd heard it before it was coming out. Actually, my manager, Stuart Young, had heard it. And we decided to, bring him over. They'd had a little success, but, they were kind of bubbling under at that point. And they came over with Pyromania, and that tour, the Emotions tour, made them in this country. But like I said, I didn't do them any favors. They were a great band, and it was a real pleasure that they kind of set the standard for opening acts. The same way I tried to do the same thing with them in reverse. When I was out playing as an opening act, I wanted to try to get with the best acts and make the best show possible. When I was a headliner, I wanted the best opening act I could get, because I wanted it to be a great show, and I wanted them to make me better.
Yeah.
I wanted to have to follow something.
Yeah.
And they did. That was as Bobby would have said, that was a hellified band.
Yeah.
And they were great. And that's, one of the most enjoyable tours I think I ever did. That, and certainly the Queen tour.
And then Rat. Didn't you do something with Rat? Or Rat? You opened for Rat, or Rat opened for you, or
Please.
something? What?
Please.
Rat opened for you?
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was 84, I think. 84.
There's an artist you did occupy the middle slot of at a stadium, which you may not even know this, but yours truly, had a little bit of a hand in that gig coming up.
I don't know yet.
The Here and Now tour.
Yeah.
Bon Jovi, Giant Stadium. 1989. Yeah. Bon Jovi, Billy Squier, Skid Row.
Right.
You want me to tell you the story?
Well, I think you should consider, if your listeners want to hear the story. You can tell me.
The story is, very briefly, though, being a fan of yours for forever and getting an advance cassette at the time. I was working in the industry at the time for a label of Here and Now, doing the same kind of radio show I'm doing with you right now at the station I came from in New Jersey. And in my studio that night was the guitarist, who's an old friend of mine from Skid Row, Dave Sabo, Snake. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there, and someone else was in that middle slot and dropped out. Something happened. I don't remember who was supposed to do it, but they had dropped out. And John Bon Jovi, being a Jersey guy, this being a Jersey station, was listening to the interview of me and Snake talking, because Skid Row was a baby band at the time, excited to be playing Giant Stadium. And John called us on the request line and said, we got to find a band to put in that middle slot. I can't put Skid Row in there. You guys are nobody, you're not big enough yet. It's, I need a real legit act. John Bon Jovi used to call me on the air and request your songs before Bon Jovi became huge. So I put all that together, and I had the advanced cassette of Here and Now, and I said to John, I said, hey, John, I said, Billy Squier just put out a great record. I have an advance of it. I know you're a fan because you used to request She's a Runner and call in when you were driving to your mom's house. I said, you should, and he said, give the tape to Snake. He'll bring it to me. He goes, I want to hear it. Now, I don't know how much that had to do with it, but at the end of the day, the next thing I know, I hear you were announced on the show, which of course I was thrilled. And I have a photo of me and you, which of course I know you don't remember, but in the broadcast box up there at that show, which I thought was a cool bill. I mean, you and Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And
But John and I go way back. I was doing stuff with John. He had a band. It's probably back around the time of Tail of the Tape, maybe even a little before.
Well, because he had a power station connection too at the studio.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't really know him there. This was before that. He had a band called The Rest, and they came to me to help them out with, some demo stuff. This is before Bon Jovi, but
right.
Probably right. It probably went pretty closely into Bon Jovi. I think that John probably went from there into Bon Jovi. It was around that 1980 period. So I remember before big hair. Yeah. When I met John, he had his hair parted on the left. It was actually, I shouldn't say that. I like John, but I guess we all have those embarrassing moments in our development, our awkward stages of development. So I knew him back when he was that young. When he was, really just getting an idea of what he wanted. But the thing that's always struck me about him, which is so impressive, is that he really knew what he wanted, and he would do anything to get there. And I mean that as a compliment. I mean, he's worked so hard to get where he got. And I got that kind of feeling when I met him. It was like, this kid really wants it. This really means a lot to him.
But listen, obviously I'm a fan, and I'm not. But I really don't think I'm overstating this. I think when we're talking about Don't Say No, Emotions, Signs of Life, that mid-80s period of your career, I think that in a large way, and we're talking about Rat, we're talking about Def Leppard, we're talking about Bon Jovi, bands, in the case of Rat and Def Leppard that you had out on tour with you. I don't think it's overstating it that your success with an album like Don't Say No and the video stuff, of course, the video world was a two-edged sword for you, which is well known, but I don't think we're overstating the fact that that stuff really kind of, for better or worse, depending upon your perspective, opened the doors for a lot of those bands. I think it was a huge influence on those bands because what you did, Billy Squier as a solo artist, was an interesting thing in that there was certainly a great appeal to the women out there through the music, and they loved you and everything. But it was also cool that the guys liked it too. It was guitar. It was edgy enough that the guy. So I think that kind of stew, that kind of balance in the music, the presentation, I think really laid and what became of it with all the video success, really laid a blueprint on what all these bands ended up doing and how they decided to kind of formulate their look and sound. Agree, disagree?
I think it would be out of place for me to say. I don't know. I mean, I can say that I know that there were labels back then who were looking for the next Billy Squier because I had a lot of friends at different labels and they would tell me that. So right. I wouldn't argue with it. I'm just saying you'd have to ask, I mean, you'd have to ask John how much influence I had on him or, I don't know. But I think that what you're saying is certainly plausible, and I'm not really trying to dance around. I just don't know, but
right.
I think it would be very vain of me to say, of course, I set the blueprint. All these bands, I don't know, but I don't think it would be implausible to say that a lot of bands were aware of the music that I was making at that time, and it was extremely radio friendly, and it wasn't radio friendly in a normal way. It wasn't generic, and a lot of bands then, we weren't quite into the MTV mass media world where things have become incredibly generic, and every band, you can mix them up and they all sound the same. But no, back then, I think that the music that I did have on the radio was somewhat distinctive, and what you said is true, that it wasn't pop, but it had a pop sensibility, but it also rocked, and there was a amalgamation of ideas that was just me, partly because I decided to be me, I guess, where I was the lead singer and I was the guitar player, and so I was melding all these different influences I had. So I think that could be true.
Right, and I think it's really like those bands in your music, a wide range of people into a wide range of styles of rock music found something that they embraced. I mean, I'm known as Mr. Metal Guy, but I proudly, as we've done the last 2 hours, waved the flag for Billy Squier. I found in your music something that connected with me that I loved, and then there could be a pop guy or whatever. And it's clearly stood up because we talked about Don't Say No, but I mean, even just the other day, not the other day, but very recently, I mean, NBC had some show on. They were using Everybody Wants You as the theme music in the show.
Well, music's used a lot. My music is
everywhere.
still used a lot, and that's something that makes me feel really good, because obviously there's a lot of music out there, and people, whether it's movies or television or whatever, they have a lot to choose from, and it's great when they're still using your music, but 30 years later, after you did it's definitely a compliment, and it's something that, as I said, means a lot to me. It humbles me. That this is
sure. And I mentioned that Buck Cherry's coming on in the last hour, and you're right. Within the set of their show, they do part of the Stroke, and inside of their biggest hit, they play the Stroke.
Yeah, how cool is that?
It's just it just
great.
doesn't. It just keeps turning over, and new generations of people discovering it. So that's got to make you feel good. Now, and before you go, I do want to ask you something on the business end of things, because I think it's really unique, and I had heard something about how you kind of structured this one day, but you are pretty much the sole songwriter on all of your material for the most part.
By and large, yeah.
You have your publishing. Mm-hmm. You own your publishing.
Yes, I do.
You also, because Don't Say No being the landmark album, a label like Capitol would never let get away, but you own your catalog as well?
I co-own them. When I broke up, we had sort of an acrimonious breakup with Capitol, which would be another time to talk about. But that was one of the conditions of the contract, was that we share rights. So in other words, they can re-release them, I can re-release them. So I don't own them exclusively. I can't prevent them from doing something with it.
But they can't prevent you from doing it.
No, yeah,
I mean, that's a really unique, really cool.
It's not quite owning the masters, but it's it's good.
Pretty darn close.
It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, but you never. I mean, obviously, to have own a catalog, be sole songwriter and own your publishing on some of these huge songs, even to most people. Well, Billy Squier hasn't been that active in the last 20 years or whatever. It's got to be pretty darn lucrative, right?
Yeah, and I've got my hip hop posse out
there.
They're waving the flag, and I work with a publisher, who represents me, but I own my publishing. But I have a very good publisher named Mark Freed at Spirit Music, and he represents me to the industry, and gets a lot of is always out looking to get my songs placed and things like that. So,
well, before we,
I do have some help.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, we have tons of bands, and I talk to tons of bands all the time who are, got screwed by labels, who are broke, who don't own their publishing, who have to re-record their music so that they can get money for it, and all this stuff. But
it's a lovely business.
It's extremely rare to have someone like yourself sitting in here who has everything so buttoned up from the business and on their catalog.
Well, I learned a lot coming, I think a lot of it is who you meet, the experiences that you have and the opportunities you have. And I came to New York at a pretty early age when I got out of high school, and I was with Magic Terry, and we were just darlings of the underground here in New York. And it gave me a chance to meet a lot of people, and so I would get tidbits of advice from people who otherwise I never would have met if I hadn't been here. The person who told me about publishing was Nat Weiss, who was the Beatles lawyer here in New York. And I remember Nat sitting me in his office and just saying, don't sell your keep your publishing. The guy, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Nat. He said, Billy, they didn't even have a deal. He said, don't sell your publishing, keep your publishing. They're going to try to get it from you. Don't don't do it.
Yeah, especially and look
You know?
now with
and he didn't
with
charge
sales,
it. I
the way
wasn't paying
sales-
him. I wasn't paying him $400 an hour. That's how
Right.
he taught. He was taking his time to see me and to give me some advice. You know, and he did that for me. And I got a lot of stuff like that from people from just being here and being on the scene. And I guess, you know, showing them that it meant something to me. I a lot like John Bon Jovi in that way. That people started to know, or they sensed that there was something maybe about me. Not so much my raw talent, but that it meant a lot to me. And it's just, this guy's different. This guy really,
Yeah.
you know. So I picked up a lot that,
Yeah.
that helped me. You know, again, I have a lot of people to thank.
And just in closing out, what are your plans now? You said good possibility you'll do some more Billy Squier full on live shows, and a number of people, when I said in the building here you were coming in, they remember a few years ago that you were doing something with forestry or something in Central Park.
Oh, I still do.
And
Yeah,
what is that exactly?
I'm involved with the Conservancy. I've been actually doing pro bono work for them for about 13 years. I take care of a little 20-acre plot outside of my apartment up on the west side, and work with the landscape. Basically, you know, doing tree pruning and shrub maintenance and stuff like that. Incredible association. I mean, the opportunity to work in the park goes without saying. Where are you gonna find property like that?
Do you get people running through the park recognizing you at all?
Not too much, because obviously I'm not out there advertising,
Right.
And I don't think people expect to see me. You know, so people start. You know, I'm in my park uniform. People ask me directions to a place, and this and that. I tell them, and I'm just a nice guy. I go down here. I think once in a while it's happened, but you know, you'd be amazed. I think people, you know, a lot of tourists in the park too. They're not expecting it.
Right. So you have a place in Manhattan and on Long Island as well, right?
Yeah, I've kind of migrated more to Long Island now because it's just more peaceful, you know, and I can run on the beach with my dog every day and, you know, stuff like that. And I have a property there. So, you know, I'm always out working with landscapes, you know, whether it's my property out there or property in here. That's become next to music. That's probably my greatest passion, is actually just being in the company of nature.
And for folks wondering, when Billy came in, the first thing I said to him, because I saw you a couple years ago and you had real short hair, and I said, "Growing your hair again? You're getting ready to rock again." And you said that's heat from your wife. Your wife likes it long, right?
I'd like to think that you could rock with short hair. I mean, I've done it before, but
it's pressure from the missus she thinks you got to have the look, right?
That's what happens, you know. This is, you know, I avoided the pressure for a long time. I didn't get married till late in life, and you know, but once they get you, you know, I was warned. You know, I was warned. I found out.
Well, hopefully she gives you a kick to go out and do some more live electric shows.
She loves
man.
it. She loves it. I've been doing some shows, sitting in with James Cotton, you know, who's the preeminent blues harmonica player in the world. Played with Muddy Waters for years, and Sonny Boy before that. And I've been doing some shows with him and his band, and we played at Lincoln Center with Taj Mahal and Pine Top Perkins and Hubert Sumlin, and it's been amazing for me because I told you about the Clapton Blues Breakers record, and you know, I've always really been affected by blues music, although I have not been a blues artist per se, and sort of being welcomed somewhat into this fold, and you know, having these guys, and particularly Cotton, you know, want me or allowing me to be a part of what he does, has been, again, very, very humbling and really gratifying to me, because these guys have seen it all. You know, they are the originals, and they played with the originals, and they, I guess, don't suffer fools lightly. You know, and so I do a few of those gigs, and then that's fun because you just kind of show up, you know, and what's the key, and count it off, and off you go, and we just have a blast. It's just really fun. So I'm keeping my hand in. You know, I did a few tours with Ringo, which was great, and those were really really fun too. Don't really know what.
Are you writing new songs? Do you write still?
I'm not particularly. It's not something which I'm not doing purposefully, but I think that people ask me that a lot, and I think that what happens is that writing becomes kind of a how should I say? Once you get on the train, when I was making records and touring, the writing was part of my creative process. It was kind of always happening, and it was my life, to a great extent. When you get off the train, for whatever reason, it's harder to identify with it. I don't find myself really thinking about writing songs because I'm not in that milieu. I'm out in the park or I'm doing other things, so I'm not fixated. And I also don't have a real outlet for it. It isn't like, if you haven't noticed, the record business isn't doing all that
Right.
well. So, people, you're going to make a record? I say, well, why would I do that? If I have an idea for a song, I wrote a couple songs about 2 years ago after the Ringo tour, and I was very inspired, and I was playing a lot. And I just woke up one morning and had an idea in my head and wrote a song and had a friend go to the studio, and I did it. And it happened to me one day in the park. I had an experience which made me get an idea for a song, and I wrote the song while I was working, and then I recorded it. If it happens, I do it. But it doesn't happen consistently. It's kind of when the muse strikes, when something happens. So I don't feel like I've lost my ability to do it. I'm not as connected to it. What I find I do all the time is I'm walking around singing blues guitar riffs in my head. And when I grew up as a kid, I learned to practice by being able to visualize. I could hear a Jeff Beck record or something, and I would I could retain the solo in my head, and then I could picture where the notes were. So I could be in Latin class or something in high school, and I'm with my head in the book, and I could be picturing the fretboard, and I could be trying to learn a Jeff Beck solo.
Wow.
And then I could go home and kind of play it.
Right.
And I still do that stuff. I'll be, I'm just be out singing blues things and, kind of keeping my hand in that way. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to that. But, I'm sure I will write more songs. I'm sure I'll do more tours. There's a lot out there, and I really just look for opportunities. The big shift I made when I got out of the business was I don't try to create opportunities. I look to respond to opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes to me with an idea, I feel good about that, because then I think if someone else wants to put some skin in the game or someone else is interested, then it's, I don't want to go out and try. I'm not out trying to sell Billy Squier to anybody anymore. I don't have the time to get you to like me, or hope you like me. It's like I'm doing okay, and I'm proud of what I've done. And if somebody likes what I've done and comes up with an idea or wants me to do something, like I said, then we have a partnership. Then I'm interested in it. And if you don't, then I'll go play with Cotton, or I'll play with Ringo, or I'll do a tour when I want, or I won't.
But that's exactly ties in with what I asked you a few minutes ago about your career and your business decisions 35 years ago. Owning your publishing, having these iconic landmark rock classics like The Stroke and Lonely as the Night and In the Dark, and everybody wants you, that you own, that you have the publishing for, that guy told you all those years ago, hold on your publishing. Because of that, you have that luxury in your life at this point in your life. I have a million artists in here every week who I could tell really deep down inside are reluctantly slugging it out at 60 years old, trying to get people to know them and still like them and make a living. But because and that's why I asked you that, because that's a huge thing. You don't have to do that. You can live your life the way you want to. Most people weren't as smart as you and didn't have the business buttoned up.
No, I'm aware of. I'm in a real good spot. I'm in a very sweet spot.
Yeah. That's a great luxury, and it's the way you can live the rest of your life. If you feel like doing a gig, you do it. You want to go play with a blues guy, you do it. Everything doesn't hinge on, am I going to make the money or whatever, because Jay-Z's still sampling your stuff, and NBC's still using your songs in their sitcoms, and that's a beautiful thing, man. I think that's awesome.
Well, when I got into music, it's because I loved the music, and I want to maintain that. And so what I try to do now is I try to play when I have an opportunity to be in a situation that I love.
Yeah, we all get into
this. And if I don't feel it, then I don't want to do it, because I wouldn't be, if I don't love it, I won't be that good at it anyway. Yeah. And the reason I have been as good as I am, whatever that degree that is because it really meant something. Whatever I've done, whatever's on vinyl or any show I've done has always really meant a lot to me. I probably, some ways, take things way too seriously, but, that's...
Well, I'll tell you, Billy,
Part of my makeup.
the last couple hours for me has been a tremendous treat. Like I said, having known you a little bit over the decades, but never having had this kind of opportunity, something thank God before I ever get out of this business, I can say I can check you off my list as a guy I always wanted to have this conversation with. And look, where we're leaving off here with the 30th anniversary, Don't Say No, doesn't even begin, because the album that comes after is, has some of my favorite songs on it, and then it goes from there. And again, as I mentioned,
I see you have a fairly hefty stack of CDs in your hands.
Tell the Truth, Creatures of Habit. I mean, I love all this stuff. Here and Now, Signs of Life. We could get into it, but obviously we're not going to do that right now. How I do want to end those, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to play you two songs from some of the later albums. Couple of my favorites, if you could just give me a couple things on both of them before I let you go. One of the things I love to death is on the album Enough Is Enough, the song Love Is the Hero, with Freddie Mercury singing on that with you. Mm-hmm. And actually, I noticed when the anthology came out, Reach for the Sky, it's a different version of that song, where there's an a cappella vocal that kind of opens it that wasn't on the Enough Is Enough album. Just give me something on Enough's Enough and your friendship and working with Freddie all those years.
Yeah, that's the what you hear on the anthology was what I originally wanted on Enough Is Enough, and it was ironic that Capitol didn't want Freddie's intro on that because they thought it would, in their words, they thought it would be confusing to my audience, and for the life of me, I can't figure out who wouldn't want to have Freddie Mercury on their record. I mean, one of the biggest artists in the world, I mean, it would have probably, I might be bigger in a lot of countries if Capitol had put that on the record. But they refused to do it. They would not put it on.
Really?
But
it's so cool. I'm going to play it so people can hear it
when
we're
you
done.
Should.
It's so cool.
It's great, and I did it in the tour last year. He wrote that at 5 o'clock in the morning at his house in London. And I was over working on Enough Is Enough. And Freddie and I had been friends for years, and so he wanted to hear what was going on. And I was over there, and we were up all night doing this and that and playing music at stun volume and, raiding his vodka freezer and all that sort of stuff. And, literally, the sun was coming up, and he said, come on, I got an idea. And he had this beautiful piano, which he'd put in his, probably originally the dining room, but now it was the piano room. And it was actually a morning where the sun was coming up in London, which is rare, but the sun's filtering through the curtains, and he walks and he sits down. He just sits at the piano, and he plays what you're going to hear at the beginning of this. He just plays it right out. He doesn't say, let me figure it. He just starts, love, and he just, lyrics, the whole thing. I mean, it's just absolutely stunned. And then he collapsed. He was done
because it was 5 and the vodka freezer was going.
He was done,
right?
And so, I had to remember to get back to my house and kind of try to remember it. Write it down and remember it so I could get him to the studio to record it. And I believe that I actually dragged him down there the next night, and we got him in the studio and banged it out. But it's
such a great song.
It's a brilliant piece of work.
It's a great song, and I remember the video for it being really cool too. You were on a roof or something, I think.
For part of it, I was on a roof. I didn't jump, but I was.
So that's one of my favorite songs, and the vocal, your vocal and his vocal, singing on those choruses and the harmony stuff.
How can you get a better person to sing with than him? One of the absolute great voices of all time.
But credit yourself too, because you're right there with them, and the vocal there is just so great. And the other song I'm going to play after it, and jumping around to a different thing, is one of my all-time favorite songs from you as well, is from Emotions in Motion, and it's Learn How to Live. Any story you can tell me about that one? Because I'm going to play that after Love Is the Hero.
I don't know.
Remember what the inspiration was for that?
I think that the message is pretty clear, and I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that I had the idea for that on the Don't Say No tour. For some reason, I think that I wrote the germ of that, while I was in the middle of the tour. But no, there isn't necessarily any particular story that goes with it. But I think from a songwriter perspective, I think the lyric is very good, and it's a good example of my thoughtfulness and my I guess it's a little bit of a without being preachy, it is a bit of philosophical look at, look at a segment of our life.
See, as a young kid listening to this, it wasn't about any of the philosophical. It was just about those crashing power chords and just how rocking it was. That song rocks so.
Yeah, well, it does. No, I guess, but I guess what I can tell you is that if you take all that stuff away, I've played that song and I did it on tours. I did it acoustically.
Yeah,
and it works as an acoustic song too.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of times, those big rock songs don't make the translation.
Yeah.
But that's a song that you can play it with one guitar, and you can have a different impact, but one that's no less pronounced. I think, because the lyrics, as I said, I think have a lot to impart.
Well, in closing, we're obviously talking about records that aren't Don't Say No here to wrap it up, and there's many more that we haven't even touched on that I could go on and on about, but. I enjoyed the hell out of the conversation, Billy, and thank you for coming in. And again, Billy Squier's 30th anniversary of Don't Say No, his breakthrough album from 1981, is now available, remastered, enhanced liner notes, couple extra bonus tracks on there as well. And that was the last thing, I promise, the last thing about Don't Say No I forgot to ask you. Were there any studio songs that didn't make the record?
No.
You wrote everything that's on the record is what you wrote for it?
There are very few extraneous Billy Squier songs.
Okay.
Because songs aren't that easy to write. So, I got 10 that were good. If I got 10 that passed muster, that was the record. I didn't write 10 more to see if I could do a better one. There are people who do that. You get someone like Bruce who'll write 100 songs, which is fine. But I mean, for my process, if I didn't have good enough songs, then I would still be writing. There were songs which got thrown out, but there weren't songs that got recorded and then thrown out. There's a handful of those in my whole career that I actually recorded and then said, no, I'm not quite good enough. Because usually they wouldn't even get to the recording process.
Right. And who could forget, too, it just hit me because there's so many things hitting me, but my all-time favorite original Christmas song, with Christmas is the Time to Say I Love You. When I heard it, I was like, finally a good up-tempo, rockin' original Christmas song. And that one has stuck around. What a history that's had.
Well, that's going to be redone. I was informed a couple of days ago that a girl named Catherine McPhee, who I believe was
American Idol,
a winner or runner-up a couple of years ago.
I don't watch the show. I just know.
No, I don't watch it, but I think she was pretty successful, and she's doing a Christmas album this year, which is called "Christmas Is the Time to Say I Love You," and that song will be right up on there.
See, when you hear all these stories about Jay-Z and Catherine McPhee and all these stories, this is why the man sitting in front of me is tanned and relaxed
and smiling
and has all his hair and looks great and isn't in clubs playing to 10 people in some dump in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. That's the That's the beauty of the business. Look, we all get into it because we love it, but if you can love it and carve out the right living, that's even sweeter. So
yeah, sometimes you got to know how to get out of it too, I guess. I've got it both ways. I'm still in it, but I can kind of do it on my own terms. And I'm grateful to all these artists. People who do my songs, they honor me, and yes, of course I benefit from it, economically as well.
Sure.
So that's all. I say thank you to all those people.
Well, Billy, thank you, man. I appreciate it. It was great to see you. And
we'll do it again. We'll do volume 2.
We'll do volume 2, and we'll pick it up with the. We're going to pick it up with another gem there with. Emotions. So that's where we'll pick up the next phase or the next series of the Billy Squier EddieTrunk interview series, if you will. As you get out, I'm going to play those 2 songs that I just mentioned, and this is from an album called Enough Is Enough. Billy Squier with Freddie Mercury, who again on this version, different from the version on the album, Freddie singing a cappella. Just what can you say about Freddie singing a cappella? And listen how in the choruses Freddie and Billy's voice merge. It's just brilliant. So this is called Love Is the Hero. And again, 30th anniversary of Don't Say No. In stores now. Pick it up. Thanks again, Billy.
My pleasure.